Okay, I see that people are still joining, but I think we can also get started, at least in the interest of time, and finishing on time. So welcome everyone to this Netherlands virtual Tableau user group. We're of course very sad that we can't have this all in person, but very happy to have you all here. Today we have a few presentations for you. After this quick introduction, we'll have Sarah Bartlett talk about Certifiably Tableau, what certifications are for Tableau and how they can help you. Then we'll have Eugenia Kiss do an introduction to the new data model that Tableau launched in its latest version, 2020.2. And then finally, we'll have Johan do a presentation on his visualization of the top 20 in jump plots. Should be very interesting to see the visual techniques that he used. So just a quick reminder, I'm Jim. I'm one of the NLTUG leaders. Femke and Maarten have done most of the work to set up this event, but unfortunately Femke couldn't join today. So I'm kind of stepping in, but credits to them to actually get all these speakers aligned and get this all promoted and set up. So yeah, if you ever want to reach out to us afterwards, have ideas for future events, feel free to contact us. We'll make sure to share our contact details later. And then our speakers for today, like I said already, Sarah, Eugenia, and Johan. Well, at least now you recognize them when you see them in person. But if you want to reach out to them, I'm sure they can share their details as well. So yeah, that's all we had for this this introduction, and we'll get started now with Sarah's presentation. So yeah, Sarah is. I'll do a quick intro, but I know she can talk more about herself than I can. Sarah's one of the co-leaders for the London Tableau user group. She's from the UK, but fortunately, due to the whole virtual event, we were able to get her here. She's also a Tableau ambassador, and she's going to talk more about certification for Tableau. So, Sarah, if you can share your screen.
Thank you for the introduction, Jim. Just share my screen. Can you confirm that you can see my slides?
Yes.
Okay, brilliant. Okay, so thank you for inviting me to your user group to speak today. I've been wanting to speak at the Netherlands TUG for quite a while now. Eugenia can confirm that, so it's really nice to be here virtually. So today I'm going to talk about how to get certified in Tableau and the different certification paths that you can take. Just to begin with, just a little bit about me. So I work as a consultant at Slalom based in London. I'm a Tableau Zen Master, a Tableau Social Ambassador, and as Jim mentioned, I also co-lead the London Tableau user group. If you want to reach out to me on social media, you can find me on Twitter at Sarah Loves Data, and also my blog, sarahlovesdata.co.uk. You may know me from some of my visualizations on Tableau Public. Here's just a small collection of them. I think I have around about 150 now. So yeah, I mean, I was in InVis Europe in the final in 2018, and the visualization on the right here is the one that I used to get into that final. And I visualize lots of different things. I do a lot of Makeover Mondays. I also run Iron Quest, so I produce a lot of visualizations to do with that as well. So just in terms of my professional background before we begin, I've been working in analytics now for about 12 years. I've been a Tableau user for 6 years. When I started using Tableau, I was prior to that, I was doing everything in Excel. I used to build these elaborate dashboards in Excel. I didn't know what Tableau was, but my employer sent me on a Tableau training course, and I guess the rest is history. I've been consulting for about 3 years, both in Slalom and in another company before that. I finally got my Tableau Certified Associate exam, certification in 2018. That was my first attempt, despite me wanting to do it for a long time before that. But I'm sure, as many of you can sympathize with, I kept procrastinating. I kept putting it off for as long as possible, and then eventually got around to doing it. And that's part of the reason why I've written this talk, is that I really want people to, think about certification quicker than I did. I did my Tableau Certified Professional exam last year. And I'm currently working my way through the Tableau e-learning badges. So I've got 11 of 13, and the only ones I have left are the Tableau server ones, which isn't really my area of expertise. So those ones are taking me a little bit longer than desktop. So I guess the question you might be asking yourself is, why should I get certified? So there's a lot of benefits you can get from getting Tableau certified. First of all, it's a really great way to prove your Tableau and data visualization skills. So you may be using Tableau and you may have been using it for quite some time, but you may not be able to quantify that you actually know the product, but the certification is a really good way to kind of test your knowledge and actually prove that you actually know how to use this tool. Another great reason is to boost your CV. So if you're looking for a new job, or if you're looking to switch roles and start working in a job that involves using Tableau, then obviously certification is a great way of proving again that you can actually use the product. And that can really help you stand out from the crowd as well. So there may be people that haven't been certified, and if you have, then obviously you may stand a better chance than they do. It also gives you a great opportunity to earn badges and also free swag. So I don't know if anyone knows this, but once you've got 2 certifications on either desktop or server, I believe you can apply to Tableau to get a free t-shirt. Sometimes they give away badges as well at conferences, and also you get the virtual badges. So anyone that takes a Tableau exam gets a virtual badge, and you can share that on social media, on LinkedIn, so that, and also save it to your profile on LinkedIn. So that's a really good way of, just showing off your knowledge and all your hard work. At the moment, Tableau are currently offering their Tableau e-learning program for free. So if you sign up between now and the 30th of June, you get the e-learning platform free for 90 days. So this is a really fantastic opportunity to actually start learning. So I've taken advantage of this myself. I signed up probably about a month and a half ago. And as I said, I've been working my way through all of these badges. Now on the e-learning platform, there's 13 role-focused learning paths. So you'll see that the paths and roles are kind of aligned to both the Tableau role level, so like creator, explorer, viewer, as well as things like community leader, site admin, executive sponsor, and then there's more certifications based around server as well. You can pick and choose these paths, so you don't have to take them all. There may be some that you're not interested in, so you can go in and just pick the ones you're most interested in, work through the learning, and at the end you can take the skills assessment, and at the end of that you'll get badges. I think for most of the skills assessments there's around 24 questions. There's no time limit, so you can take as long as you like to complete those assessments, and you can take them as many times as you like. So if you don't pass on the first occasion, you can go back, do some more reading and take the exam again, and then you get a nice shiny badge at the end of it, which you can easily post to LinkedIn. But I want to reiterate that this is a really great opportunity. It's free, so please take advantage of it if you can. And this really is going to help you on your path to certification as well. So if I talk about the certifications now, there's 3 certifications specifically for Tableau Desktop. So there's Specialist, Certified Associate, and Certified Professional. I'm going to run through these each one by one, so don't worry too much about the text you see on this slide. So if we start with the Specialist exam, this is the first entry-level exam for Tableau Desktop. It's actually the newest of the 3, so this one was released probably about 2 years ago now. It's 1 hour long. It involves 30 multiple choice questions, and usually it costs $100, but currently, because of the coronavirus situation, Tableau are currently offering it at a discounted price, so it'll currently be $50. So again, it's a really good opportunity to start getting certified right now. And the best thing about this exam is that it's valid forever. So as soon as you've got this exam on your profile, it will be there forever and it doesn't expire, unlike the other 2. So for the Specialist exam, there's no prerequisites, so you don't need to have done any Tableau exams before. They suggest that you consider sitting this exam after using the product for 3 months, but obviously that's different for everyone, and it will be highly dependent on how often you use Tableau. The exam involves 22 theoretical questions and 8 hands-on questions. And by hands-on questions, the questions will be something along the lines of, what was the sales value in 2018? And you'll need to go into Tableau to actually find the answer to that question. And there'll be like about 4 multiple choice answers you can pick from. Tableau say that this exam is targeted at those who have foundational skills and understanding of Tableau Desktop. So you're not expected to be a Tableau genius to sit this exam. It's purely just an entry level, just to confirm that you kind of know your way around the tool. So before we go any further, let's do a quick practice exam question from the exam guide for the Specialist exam. So this question says, which of the following can you use to create a calculated field that returns data independent of the data granularity in the view? Is it an include LOD calculation, so LOD meaning level of detail, a table calculation, a basic calculation, or a fixed level of detail calculation. So I'll give you a couple of seconds just to think about the answer. Okay. So the answer is a fixed level of detail calculation. So hopefully that kind of gave you a little bit of insight into how the exam works. There's more sample questions online on the Tableau website you can find. I've purely just taken this question from there to give you a feel for how the exam might be for you. In terms of the study tips that Tableau have issued, they suggest that you complete the desktop 1 e-learning course, and the suggested time for that is 10 hours. Now this obviously is on the e-learning platform, so you can currently access it for free and you can work through all the modules in there. I've listed out the modules on the screen so you get a feel for what that e-learning course entails, but it's mainly just getting you started with Tableau. So connecting to data, grouping fields, sorting data, creating visualizations, understanding how to build common chart types, understanding basic calculations, and then also building more interactive dashboards and essentially sharing those with others. So the kind of things that you'll be doing with Tableau anyway, if you're using it at work, let's say. But from the community, there's quite a lot of people who have taken this exam now, and a lot of people have issued their own tips. So the number ones that I see kind of coming through the most are to practice. So while the desktop 1 course is great and all the e-learning courses are great, they're not hands-on. So you don't actually get your hands on Tableau and get using the tool on any of those e-learning courses. So my number 1 tip would be definitely practice using Tableau. So you really need to use it to learn how it works and kind of get that knowledge. Christine Reitman is from Germany, and she actually took the exam last year, but as part of her exam, like kind of a revision process, she published this blog series. So she went through everything that she was learning and kind of any issues she came up along the way. And you can access that blog series using the link that I have on the screen here. But highly recommend checking that out. It's really good to see how she structured her learning and the kind of stumbling blocks that she came up against. As always, I'd say read the exam study guide and practice the questions in the study guide. You're going to hear me saying this a lot, but I think it's really important that Tableau put those study guides out for a reason. They really do give you a feel for what's in these exams, and the practice questions really do replicate what is in the exam. So if you take the practice questions and you understand them and you can answer them confidently, I'm pretty certain you'll be able to confidently take any of these exams. So moving on, the next level of the exams is the Certified Associate. So this one is 2 hours long. It involves 36 multiple choice questions. It costs $250 and it's valid for 2 years. Now, before you take the Certified Associate exam, you don't need there's nothing you need to do. So you don't need to take the specialist. So you could go straight in at this level and not have taken the specialist exam at all. It's purely up to you. Tableau suggests that you have been using the product for 5 months before you attempt this exam. And I'd say with this exam, there's a real focus on accuracy rather than the journey. So it's not how you got to the answer, it's just making sure you get the correct answer. So similar to the specialist exam, there are questions on the next exam that will involve you going into Tableau and finding the answer. So again, it doesn't matter kind of how you're getting to that answer as long as it's the right one. But my only point on that would be that if you're going about it kind of the wrong way or a time-consuming way, then obviously you're going to limit yourself in the exam if it's taken you so long to find the answer to these questions. Now, in terms of topic weightings, just to give you a feel for what they're testing you on in this exam, the top 2 categories that are weighted the highest in this exam are calculations, which accounts for 18% of the final mark, and data connections. So connecting to data and calculations. Now, obviously the exam tests you on other things as well. So very similar to the specialist exam in some ways, but it just goes that level deeper. So you need to understand how to build a map, how to perform analytics, how to build dashboards, and you may be tested some theoretical or ask some theoretical questions about those things on the exam rather than actually having to do the task. So they may ask you a question about mapping capabilities, but you won't actually have to build a map. Now, Tableau suggests that you complete the Desktop 1 e-learning course just as you would have done for the specialist exam before completing this exam. And again, that's on the e-learning platform, which is currently free. They also suggest you complete the Desktop 2 e-learning course, which is another 10 hours and covers some of the more intermediate features, including advanced charts and more complex calculations. And they also suggest you read the Visual Analytics Best Practices Guidebook, which is also a white paper. So it's free to download on the Tableau website. I highly, highly, highly suggest you read this guide. It's going to help you for all of the exams and also just in your day-to-day usage of Tableau. So in this guidebook, it goes through all the best practices of building charts and how to build effective charts in Tableau. So I really recommend you do read this because particularly on the next exam, which I'm going to talk about in a second, it's really vital that you've understood this guide and how Tableau expects you to apply those best practices. So I've taken this exam myself and these are my tips. You can also find these tips in my blog. It's my most popular blog post to date. So clearly people are getting something from my tips that I've written up, but I would say definitely read the exam guide, attempt the practice questions, really get to grips with that. It will give you a good feel for how the exam is structured and the kind of questions you'll be asked. The learning resource that I found most useful for this exam was on a website called learningtableau.com. So on that website, there's lots of free practice quizzes, both for the associate exam and the specialist exam. And you can also pay a small amount. I think it was probably for me about £7, so not much at all. And that gives you access to some practice papers. I'm not sure how many there are, but there's definitely more than one. And obviously that will build upon the practice questions that Tableau put out, which is only covers one exam. I found those really, really helpful. And the great thing about that site is it actually gives you a solution guide so you can see if you've got something wrong, how you should have attempted the question and how you can get to the right answer. My next tip would be to break the questions down into steps. So some of the more hands-on questions may ask you a question like, what was the profit in 2018 in the South? Now, since you know that question is focused on 2018, it really helps if you, before you do anything, if you filter for that year. So filter for 2018 and then attempt the question, because then you can be sure that you've narrowed down your results just to that year. The areas that kind of tripped me up most when I was preparing for this exam were trend lines, p-squared and r-values. These are things that I hadn't really used in Tableau before. I'd never had a need to, so I had to do a lot of revision around those. You need to be confident explaining what box plots are. So can you talk about the box and whisker plots? You may know them as. So being able to explain what the middle, like interquartile range represents. And also when to know your LOD calculations, so level of detail calculations, and when to use them and when you don't need to use them. So just understand in what situations should they be applied. Okay, so finally, moving on, the highest level desktop examination is the Certified Professional. Now this one is 3 hours long. It's practical, hands-on, very different to the other two in that sense. It costs $600, so significantly more expensive than the other ones as well, and it's valid for 3 years. Now, before taking this exam, you must have passed the Desktop Certified Associate certification, and your exams or your certification still needs to be in date. So if it's expired, you'll have to go back and take the Certified Associate certification again before taking the professional exam. Tableau suggests that you should have been using the product for 12 months or more before taking this exam. You really need to have had that hands-on practice with Tableau before attempting this. And this exam really focuses in on visual best practices, technical skills, and storytelling. So whereas the other two exams are more focused around theory, this one's completely different in the sense that it's very hands-on and you'll be doing things in Tableau for the duration of those 3 hours on that exam. There are some short questions, there's some long questions, and there's some, you also have to do some storytelling through dashboarding and also by using story points. So if you've not used story points before, definitely go and have a look at those and figure out how they work. This exam is 3 hours long and it's intense. So like those 3 hours, you'll be hands-on throughout and you'll feel very tired at the end because it is a tough exam, I'm not going to lie, but it's totally doable if you've practiced and are confident using Tableau. So before I continue, so the suggested materials that Tableau say you should look at before attempting this are to complete the Desktop 3 e-learning course, which is another 10 hours, and it's currently free on the e-learning platform. And this covers more complex calculations and views, and kind of focuses in on the things that you can do to enhance your dashboards. So things like actions and highlighting and things like that. Then they suggest you complete the Dashboard Design Visual Best Practices course. So this is almost like an online version of the Visual Best Practices white paper, and that's 3 hours long. And again, it's available on e-learning. I can't emphasize that enough. By completing these, either the course or looking at the white paper, you'll really get a sense for what Tableau are expecting of you and how they're expecting you to display data. So I wrote a blog post after taking this exam myself. You can find it on my blog, but I've summarized my tips here. So as always, read the exam guide, attempt the practice questions. With this exam, unfortunately, there's only one kind of practice paper that Tableau provide, and there's no kind of resources that I found elsewhere. So like learningtableau.com, for instance, they don't have a practice guide for this exam. So you only have that one practice paper to go on. My number one tip would be to practice using Tableau. So just practice as much as you can. You really need to get using the tool before you think about attempting this exam. And I'll talk about ways you can practice later in this talk. Also try and focus on building vizzes quickly. So like, projects like Makeover Monday, which I'll cover later, can really help you get more comfortable building those visualizations quickly and just building things effectively in a short period of time. The areas to focus on before attempting this exam, I'd say, are parameters. So top N, measure and sheet swapping. So be comfortable applying those methods in your work. Be comfortable with nested LOD calculations, because you will get a question on nested LODs. Don't panic if you absolutely hate nested LODs. It's not a problem. Obviously, you could still fail that question and still pass the exam, but there will be a question on that. Be confident doing data joins and blends, because you'll likely be asked to do a join or a blend as part of the exam. Be comfortable with story points, because as part of the exam, you'll be expected to build some story points. And of course, be confident with visual best practices. I'd say during the exam, obviously you use a virtual machine, and I'll talk about that in a second, but it can be quite daunting, and the whole setup is just a little bit different to what you may be used to. So when you first go into the exam, have a look at the scoring framework that they show. It's the first screen that you'll see, and that will tell you how much weight each section will carry. So you can really know where to focus your time and effort. I was told before taking this exam by a friend that I should start at the end and then work backwards. Now, I started doing that in my exam and realized that was not the way to go for me, because the way the exam is written is you build up to those more lengthy questions. So they're almost like getting you into the swing of things before answering you some more complex questions. It starts off small and kind of gets big. And I found it was good to start at the beginning for me and then build up, because I went straight in at the lengthy question and was like, well, this is too much, and then went quickly back to the beginning. Be careful not to miss any questions. That can be quite easy to do. I nearly missed out an entire question in the exam because I didn't scroll down enough on the screen to see it. So be careful not to do that. And then don't spend too long on a particular question. So like I said before, they don't need to be answered in any particular order. So you can easily bookmark a question that you're stuck on and go back to it later without wasting lots of time kind of dwelling over it. One tip I found really useful was to be descriptive with your titles. So when you're building a chart, rather than just saying profit, you could actually be profit is the highest in January, for instance, and just be a little bit more descriptive. And you'll find that will help you later in the exam when you get to build the story points. And most of all, be practical with your charts and don't be flashy. It's not IMViz. You don't need to build anything really fancy. Just make sure it aligns to best practices and it's functional. It doesn't need to look really, really good. So those are the exams. Hopefully that's been a good kind of intro into what they entail. Just a quick note on exam proctors. So you will take these exams remotely unless you take them at Tableau conference in person. It can take some time to get set up with the proctor. So essentially the proctor is somebody who's in a different location who's watching you while taking the exam and making sure that you're not cheating, essentially. They're asked to see your photo ID, so you'll need to hold that up to your webcam, so have that handy. Make sure you clear your desks and your surroundings because they'll ask you to kind of show you around the room. Make sure your desk is clear, that there's no kind of paper there or anything you're going to use to cheat. Make sure your Wi-Fi is reliable. You don't want that cutting out halfway through. I had that happen to a friend, and she actually ended up having to restart the exam every time her Wi-Fi cut out on different days, so it wasn't ideal. And also, this might sound weird, but don't talk to yourself, because I've heard people that talk to themselves while sitting this exam have been asked by the proctor, like, who are you speaking to? Are you cheating? So if you can, don't talk to yourself. Now, I just say before, as I wrap up, just leverage the community in everything you do. You'll find that the community can really help you to engage and improve your skills. So you can use Tableau Public to share your work with others and build up your profile online. You can obviously leverage community projects like Makeover Monday, which will really help you improve your skills and get better and faster at visualizing data. You can engage with the community on social media. Obviously, like things like Twitter, they're really rich for the community, and you can go on there. If you're sitting these exams, you can go on there and ask people questions. People will be willing to come back and share their top tips. And then also think about giving back as well. So rather than just taking from the community, think about sharing your own content. So whether that's visualizations, blog posts, videos, or even just going on the Tableau forums and answering questions, people really kind of welcome that kind of content as well. As I've mentioned it many times before, Makeover Monday is a really, really good source of where you can go to find data sets and actually practice your skills and improve your skills. This is where I kind of entered the community, and I credit this as getting me to where I am today. So if you don't know what Makeover Monday is, every week they release a new data set and a new not so good visualization to kind of make over and make better. And you can, through that program, you can also get feedback from the leaders, Eva, Marie and Charlie Hutchinson, and also just work with the community, because people will be willing to give you feedback even if they're not one of the leaders as well. And then the other project I'd highly recommend if you're looking to sit these exams is Workout Wednesday. So Workout Wednesday is almost the opposite of Makeover Monday, in the sense they produce a finished visualization, and your job is to then figure out how they built it. And again, the leaders put out videos that kind of walk through the solution, and by participating in Workout Wednesday, you really get to your head around some of the more complex features like calculations, or some of the new features in Tableau as the new releases come out. There's other visualization projects or Tableau focused projects you can get involved in. So IronQuest is the one that I lead. So that's focused around just building visualizations as you would do in the Tableau IronViz feeders. There's Project Health Viz, run by Lindsay Betzendahl, which focuses on health data. The Sustainable Development Goals project, which is focused on visualizing the UN Sustainable Development Goals. Every month they pick a different one. And then there's Sports Viz Sunday, which focuses on sports data. So my top tips again are practice lots, utilize the training resources that are available to you, especially the ones that are free at the moment, and engage with the community. And then of course, celebrate your success. So post your badges and everything on social media. People love to see that you're doing well and you're getting certified. So thank you. If you want to reach out to me, I have all my contact details on the screen. Otherwise, I'm around to take some questions now.
So you can use the Q&A in your screen. So please, if you have any questions, enter them there. Jim, do we have any questions?
Not yet. No, there's no questions in the Q&A window. So
I'll stick around if there's any questions that come in.
There's someone. Will the exams be based on the latest version of Tableau Desktop?
They're not usually on the latest version. If you go on the website, you can actually find out what version they're testing you on. So if you just look at the exam details, they'll tell you. So I think currently they're a couple of versions behind. So you won't be expected to know like the new features straight away or anything like that.
Yeah, I can imagine that's a concern, especially with the pace that new features are coming out.
Yeah.
All right, another one. So from Sadel McCall. Hi, Sarah. Thanks so much for this. Is awesome. Would you focus more on building visualizations or training to improve your skills? So I guess more the theoretical or the practical approach.
Yeah, I think a balance of both. So maybe use the training to kind of learn the principles, and then get hands-on and practice those principles. So you really do need to be hands-on with Tableau before taking any of these exams, because you need to understand how it works, especially if they're asking you to do some hands-on questions. You may struggle if you've not used Tableau enough to kind of get to the answers to those.
Okay, I've got one more question, and I think then we'll go to the next speaker. Just a quick question from Andre: if Tableau Prep is also part of the exams, or if that's
it's
not
currently, no. I think maybe longer term they may have a separate prep exam, but no, you won't be tested on Tableau Prep at all in the desktop exams.
Okay, perfect. Well, thank you. Thanks again, Sarah. I think well, I saw a lot of comments in the chat as well that people found it very interesting and motivating. So who knows? Let's see how well certified we can get everyone.
Yeah.
But thanks for presenting.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. Thanks.
Okay, and then we'll we'll continue now with a presentation from Eugenia. She's going to cover the data model that Tableau's recently released. Eugenia is also part of our NLTUG leadership team, but today she will be presenting some content as well. So Eugenia, I'll stop sharing and then you can start your screen share.
Okay, great. Hello, everyone. Can you hear me and can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, and I just in case stop my video so that I want my audio would be perfect and not break out. Okay. So today we'll be talking about the new data model. It's a new feature which was released at the beginning of May, so it's not even a month that it was released. And just a second. Yes, just to introduce myself, very quick intro. For those of you who don't know, my name is Eugenia. I'm analytics consultant and also Tableau certified trainer at Interworks. I'm also Tableau certified. So all the great tips, I must say that I'm glad that finally we had this presentation by Sarah. Very motivational. I'm pretty sure that many of you will be now motivated to take some of these certifications and definitely continue learning. I'm also a co-leader of the Netherlands Tableau user group, and if you want to connect with me afterwards, feel free to use Twitter, my mail, or LinkedIn. And with this, let's get started, and let's jump into Tableau right away. So I'm not sure why I cannot do this, but okay. I hope you can see my screen clearly. We are right now in Tableau 2020. 2, so new version. And let's connect to the Excel file. And we will be connecting to the bookshop dataset, which was provided with a new Tableau version. So if you are interested, I will afterwards post where you can find this, this new dataset if you want to play around yourself. Okay, so right away, a few things that you maybe noticed that are different from the previous version. And to let you know, I assume that you're familiar with Tableau a little bit, at least, and you know what are joins, blends, unions, so I will not go into detail too much. Okay, so here you can see that we have slightly different icon here. And let's drag a few first table into the view. It will be our book table. And again, you see that we have here need more data icon, which is new. And here we can actually, if you click on this one, it will take you to Tableau Help, which describes the new data model and about relationships. Okay, so let's bring another one. And this time we will bring offer table. And you see, as I'm dragging this new table in, the behavior is slightly different from the previous versions of Tableau. You can see that this orange curve appears, and this is so-called noodle. And right now, Tableau is trying to create relationships between these two tables. So I drop it here. And again, you see that slightly different dialog window and also slightly different the connection that right now is trying to establish here, different from the previous versions. So it's a different window from what we used before. Now it's a relationships window, and Tableau has identified the fields that we could create relationships on. So offer ID, and we can obviously add more fields here. We can also specify how the performance will be going on. So you can change here cardinality and integrity. And by default, if you're not sure, it is recommended that you will leave it as it is. Yeah. So, and if you want to set up it in your way, you can do it as well. So you can change it, for instance, from one to many relationships, and you can learn more here again. It will take you to Tableau page. And for instance, if you change it and then you're not sure, you can always revert it to default. So now we are good to go. We created our first connection here. And maybe you're interested if I can still do blends and joins and the unions. Yes, you can. And to create a union or join, you need to click on one of the tables. So let me right now click on the book table here. I will double click, or you can also click here on the drop down. And this is more familiar dialog that we already saw previously. So you see that we have as our primary table will be book, it's blue, and I will bring here info. So as previously, you can still view the data. So this is still available. And I can bring in info, and you see that it can still do the union. And I will drop it here next to the book table. And now it is creating join that we already, like Tableau already recognized it. I will double click on it to create a left join. And otherwise this remains the same as it was before. Yeah, so you could select different IDs here. And here you can see that we have book table, and then it continues with the info table. So it's right now Tableau creating one table for us. Let me also bring another table here to create one more connection. I will add also a word, and we'll also create a left join here. So you can see that we have a table which right now one physical table which is created from avert, book, and info table. And now we are good to go. We are happy with this. We'll close the connection here. We need to click on this cross. And you see that now we went one layer up, and Tableau tells us that one table which we have here, book, is created by three tables. And you also can see that it's at the bottom, three tables we created from three tables, avert, book, and info. And it doesn't show us author because right now it takes us as a two different entities, as a two different tables. Yes, so table author and book with connection to info and avert. So let me jump here to a presentation to explain it a little bit better. So prior to Tableau 2020.2, we had only physical layer. So we only had this part. And now with a new data model, we actually have two data layers. It's a logical layer, which can consist of several tables. So for instance, we have here book table, and it consists of several joins as we created. And the other table, so it can consist also, as you can see, with join and maybe some union. So this is how right now Tableau approaches our data source creation. So let me go back. And let's just make it a little bit more complicated. And we'll bring edition. Again, you see that I can bring it here. And Tableau wasn't able to identify, so I need to help it a little bit. Book ID and book ID from edition table. And again, you can see that the data source grid, we can see by table, right? Let me bring also publisher here. This is good to go. You see that it's very quickly creating these connections. And as you can see here on the left, I have sales Q1, Q2, Q3, and Q4. So we probably want to create a union. And there is several possibilities how you can do it. Let me show you one of them. So you can click on cells Q1 and then select, hold Control Shift and select all of them and just bring it. You see that I can actually do it like this. And Tableau bringing very quickly union for us. So you can see that it identified the tables it should, the IDs on it should connect the field, and then it created also the union, and we have a new icon here, union. So we can double click on it, or here, for instance, we can click on the drop down and edit union. So here it's a familiar dialog. We can, for instance, remove one if you want to, or bring it back. So this is one of possibilities how you can create a union. I can right now remove it just to show you how you can do it differently. The other way to create a union, you can just bring one sales Q1 connected to edition table. Again, we'll close it, and then we can click on the drop down and convert it to union. Yes, and here from here we can bring the other three quarters and close. So this is the main differences from the data source point of view. And I want to show you, in case that you will connect to the old workbooks where you already have some joins or maybe some other like data source created with some connections, how it will look like. So I have here the workbook which was created in the previous version of Tableau 2020.1, and if you go to the data source, you can see that you will see this as a migrated data. Yes, so and when you double click on it, you will see the old connection, how it was created. So everything will stay and remain for you. So you can still use it as it was. You don't need to make any changes. The only change would be that I will mention a little bit later, would be a number of records if you have used a number of records of your calculations. So let's go and see how the worksheet has changed. So here, as you can see, first thing that maybe you noticed that we have several tables that are stacked on top of each other. And we don't have, or at least we don't have the names for dimensions and measures as we were used to see it before. We also don't see the number of records, but actually number of records are still there. And they're just at the very bottom of every table. And now we have count there. So instead of number of records, we have count of records per table. You can see that there is a author count, table count, and so on. Also, dimensions and measures are still organized the same way. So you can see that right now, if I will try to take hours writing per day and try to bring it up, you still see the separator for dimensions and measures. So they're still there, and they just, yeah, to save the space, they're not, you don't have the sign about it. So let me show you how it will actually behave. So let's bring first author ID to the rows. And notice here at the bottom, just a second. Not sure. Yeah, okay. So you can see that here is 41 marks. We have 41 authors. And let's bring and see how many books were created by each author. And we will also sort it. And as you can see that some authors created 8 books, 4, and if you scroll down, we can see that some of the authors actually haven't created any books. And this is actually very nice because as you could see that previously, if you would create a connection, if you go back and create a connection with book and authors, you would probably create left join or maybe inner join. And then in this case, we would lose the information for authors that haven't created any books. If you would create outer join, obviously we'll have the same view. So in this case, using new data model, you don't need to think about what kind of connection do you need. Tableau will do it for you. So you just can create and think on the fly, and Tableau will understand what you need. Okay, so let me show you what would be the difference with the calculated fields. So we will create a very simple calculation. You can see here we have first name and last name for the author. Let me just bring it here to show you. And let's create a calculation which will show the full name right away. So I'll create a calculated field very quickly, use functionality of drag and drop. Okay, and call it full name. We'll bring it here. And also notice that right now, this calculated field appeared in the table it belongs to, right? So let's create another calculation. And I on purpose will create a calculation which will take fields from different tables. Maybe you can guess right now while we'll be typing where it will appear. So I'm interested to see in which genres my authors are creating the books and which genres they're writing. So it will be author and genre. And I will take a full name. And we'll bring genre, which is from the book table. So the calculation is correct. If I'll close it right now, you see that it didn't appear on the author table, not in the book table, but it appeared at the very bottom after all the tables here as an author and genre. So I'll bring it here, and you can see that some of the authors actually writing in several genres, which is interesting. And what if I will also create a calculation which would be, so to sum up here, basically a row level calculation, also sets, for instance, they will belong to the table it's created. So if it's just for one table, then it will appear the table you created it in. Or if you use a calculation that creates from multiple tables, it will go at the very bottom, or also aggregated calculations. So let me just very quickly show you another example. And let's say that we want to maybe see price per book. Yes, so very quickly one more calculation, price per book. And we will take price, so sum of price divided by book count. And in this case, this calculation also appears at the very bottom, because here it will depend on a level of detail in the view. So if I bring here, for instance, book name, book title, and we'll bring it here. Yes, then you know that some books can have several editions, for instance. So I can take from different table, and probably, so some of them should have duplicate right now. Let me see, ISBN probably maybe instead. Yeah, so you can see that right now some books are cheaper, and you probably can guess why, because of the format. So some would have hardcover, and some would have just a paperback. So you can see that Tableau even aggregates for us properly. So you don't need to right now change the calculation or use an LOD. I mean, you can still use LOD, you can still use blends, and let's just, if everything is still available for you, just with the new data model, you have much more flexibility. And so to just finish this, I have one more slide for you. When you publishing, yes, so before the previous version, it would be one data source, basically one table. When you publish it right now, you actually have several tables, which can be still created again by several physical tables as well. All the things you can find on the Tableau help. So I definitely recommend. So here are some resources. I will just open the windows. This was a very quick intro. But otherwise, if you really like get you started, but if you want to explore it further, I definitely recommend to check some of the Tableau help. It's really nicely explained. So here you can see comparison relationships versus joins, when to use what would be the difference. Also comparison to blends. And I definitely recommend to watch this video by Bethany Lyons. It's a 1-hour video with great examples, so that you can see where new data model can help you a lot and can reduce a lot of struggles. And otherwise, as I mentioned, the bookshop dataset can be found here. So you can just either Google, but I will also add it in the follow-up email. And yes, otherwise, I wish you really to have fun with this new data model. And I'm happy to answer questions if you have some.
All right, thank you very much, Eugenia. And there are a few questions in the Q&A. I'm going to answer. I don't know if we have time for all 4 of them, but let's start with a few simple ones. I think very quick ones. Hans was asking, can you still do this with extracts? How does that work? Can you still I imagine it has to do with multi-table extracts in this case.
Yes, exactly. So you can still do the extract. Obviously, you can see that when you click here on extract. So I hope you can see my screen. And click here on edit, you would see how you right now able to create the extract. And before, maybe you noticed that already in a few other versions of the previous versions, you could already select multiple tables or physical tables. So you can decide how you want it, but yeah, it will be right now as a logical table. However, you can still use, for instance, imagine that you don't have these tables, or you want still to create it the old way. It's possible. You just click here on the book and create it as one table and create one table as an extract. But you need to decide up front again with the unions and joins what you want to create. So you need to do all the work, preparation work up front. Whenever here, it's Tableau, it's doing it for you.
Okay, very good. Another quick question from Alberto was, what about folders? Can you still create folders in these, this kind of data structure as it's showing per table?
Good question. Oh, sorry. Oh, I need to right now save it. So let me just go quickly to live. So first of all, you can still reorganize a group by folder, yeah, and also data source order. So yes, it looks like you can still, yeah, it will be still possible. I haven't created, so therefore group by and then folder here create.
Under folders, but yeah, okay, very good. There was one question from Luis Rivera, but I think that's more about what is the advantage of having these kind of physical and logical layers. I think I would refer to the documents and videos that Eugenia shared.
Yes,
I don't think we have time to go into all of that today, but very good question, of course.
Yeah.
And then I think Mitte was asking about, I think, if it was possible to show if you were doing an inner or outer join, but I think that's kind of not relevant in this case because the relationships don't have like inner or left or outer join characteristics, right? In
a way, you can still see what Tableau is doing with the, just a second, with the performance recording. So I hope you know this option. And for instance, if you just, started doing, let's say that we start performance recording here, and we'll just drag and drop things into the view, you could see what Tableau is actually then doing afterwards. I will just continue to the Yeah, but I hope if we are not familiar again, I can also add the link afterwards, or can right now demonstrate it. Not sure how we are on time.
We're getting close on time. So
Okay.
one last quick question before I move to Johan from Petra. Are these relationships replacing data blends completely, or can you still also blend?
You can still also blend, definitely. So very quickly to show, you can still, let's say that I'm right now just adding this one. But at the same time, this was one of the points why to do, you could see that, yeah, I'm right now available to do blends. But where maybe you would still use blends, it's because blends can be created per view. Whereas relationships is you need to first connect, like, you know, you need to define where you want to connect here.
All right. Yes, very good. All right. So we're running out of time. Sorry if there's any more questions. Well, you can. I imagine you can reach out to Eugenia afterwards, or have a look at the resources that we'll share afterwards. And then we'll quickly continue to Johan, who's going to talk a bit about his visualization of the top 2000s. Johan, we're not hearing you yet. You're still unmuted. Oh, you're muted. Yes.
Can you see my screen?
Yes, we can see your screen.
Oh, great. Okay. Hi. Thanks so much for having me, and many thanks to Eugenia and Sarah for the interesting presentations. I am Johan de Groot. Oh, I'll show myself. I'm a freelance Tableau consultant and analyst for my own company called AntiChaos. A little background information. I've been using Tableau for quite some time. I'm not sure the exact version of my first install, but I do remember the introduction of Tableau 3.5. That's 13 years ago. At first, I used Tableau in a daily work as online marketeer. Later, I started helping people using Tableau as a consultant. I create dashboards, set up data sources, install and configure Tableau server, build prep flows. And besides the usual Tableau stuff, I also love all the tech stuff with extensions, REST API, and Hyper APIs. Using Tableau, I also get in touch with some other nice technologies like Python scripting, Alteryx, Postgres spatial calculations, and AWS infrastructure. Currently, I'm assigned on a very nice project for the Dutch Ministry of Foreign Affairs, the Data Lab, besides several other smaller projects. In this lucky situation, especially in these special times, I've created many dashboards building all kinds of data. But at the end of each year, I create one dashboard which is not client-specific, does not contain sensitive information, whose data is familiar to everyone in the Netherlands, top 2000 of Radio 2. I started my first top 2000 visualization in 2011, pretty basic with a then still prominent green-red color scheme. And was probably Tableau version 6.1, without a lot of features which we now take for granted and or love. My initial focus for the dashboard was on the number of titles per artist and a change of that number through the years. From that year on, I created a new visualization based on the top 2000 data every year. The number of sheets grew, and so did my skills in Tableau. In 2017, I created two very similar dashboards, one of the top 2000 of that year, and one dashboard on a special request, the SNOP 2000, a list just like top 2000, but with alternative, some say obscure songs. This version was also a new attempt to visualize the movement of each song through the list. One song per line and one dot for every year. If you click on the title, you get the movement of the song visualized by a step chart. In 2019, I had the idea of a more daring chart type, the jump chart. Inspired by earlier work by Sonja Kuipers, I searched for the right way to do this and a way to do this in Tableau. A couple of days later, I published this visualization on Tableau Public. But before this visualization was done, I had to take some steps. The process from top 2000 to jump chart can be summarized by this process. First, getting the data. Secondly, clean the data so it's usable within Tableau. Dig up the theory on the jump charts. Prepare the data so these charts can be made within Tableau. Create the calculations. Visualize the data. and make some final dashboarding formatting. First, getting the data. The Top 2000 website offers a list as a download, but the export is very simple and contains only 1 year. At first I searched and found all the separate Top 2000 downloads for each year, which I copy-pasted into one large Excel file. This way I had all the songs from all years. But after creating this full dataset, I found out the data didn't look the same for each year. The problem was in the spelling of both the artist and the songs. One year it was The Beatles, another year Beatles The, and other times just Beatles. Did Prince sing Kiss alone, or did the Revolution also participate? And is ZZ Top written with or without a hyphen? And these weren't the only complicating artists. At first I couldn't believe that the 3 J's were in the Top 2000 at all, but then I learned that even their ultra-short band name could be spelled in at least 3 different ways. The same kind of problems were even harder to solve on the song titles. Alice Cooper sang either Hello Hooray or Hello Hooray, and U2 was either Stuck in a Moment You Can't Get Out Of, or just Stuck in a Moment. It took a lot of handwork to make this a more consistent data set. And obviously, for just a fun hobby project, I still missed out lots of artists and songs because of all the spelling variations. I do like creating Tableau visualizations a lot, but I'm not really fond of correcting the data manually in Excel. But a couple of years ago, my luck changed thanks to Wikipedia. On this page about the Top 2000, the complete list of all songs ever ranked in the list was published in one large pivot table. And they keep updating it every year. Usually we don't like pivot tables as a data source, but this way made sure every artist-song title combination was equal for every year. Less cleaning, more time for Tableau. There are many ways to convert an HTML table to an Excel file, using formulas, regular expressions, and more. I've tried Python, Alteryx, online importing tools, and so on. But in the end, the easiest way was just copying the HTML table from the browser and paste it right into Excel. Excel doesn't really like it. It's quite a large table with lots of formatting, so pasting it can take some time. But at the end, the data was ready. I used one extra copy-paste action to remove most of the formatting and the hyperlinks. If you have to do this every week or even every day, you really want to automate this. But since this data is only refreshed once a year, it was the most efficient way to do it. I got all the data, but this data needed some cleaning to be useful in Tableau. I use Alteryx to do the data cleansing. Tableau Prep can definitely be used for this task also, but I created my first Top 2000 Alteryx flow already a couple of years ago, and I built the cleansing flow further on top of that one. What needs to be done? The data needs to be unpivoted to create a row per artist title per Top 2000 year instead of all the columns. Next, I create an ID for each artist title combination. This was not absolutely necessary, but using a numeric ID will improve the performance of the visualization because numeric calculations are faster than calculations on text. And all the years needed to be changed from 99, 0, 1 to real dates. And finally, I removed all the positions with strange values above 2000, which were present in the data for some reason. After running the Alteryx flow, the data looked like this. And now the theory. The visualization I had in mind for my latest edition was a jump chart. Instead of just visualizing the earlier positions of each song, it seemed nice to give it some kind of movement, using arcs between the different positions. And like many Zen masters have told us before, Tableau can be used like a drawing program, so it should be possible. The lines I want to draw within Tableau were fluid lines, that slowly rises from the early position and then approaches the new position with a dive, like this one. Many of these fluid lines can be calculated using just a few data points. These lines or curves are called Bézier curves. Bézier curves are lines which are defined by control points. By defining the right control points, you can draw a beautiful fluid line between two other points. But how do you calculate a Bézier curve? I read a lot about the Bézier curves, starting with the Bézier theory on Wikipedia, and searched for the right and easiest way to calculate these lines. My most valuable resource turned out not to be a Tableau page or a math website, but an article on javascript.info. This website explained clearly how the lines are drawn from point to point and how the formula looks like. You can start with a Bézier curve of just 2 points, but that's just a boring straight line. 3 points get much more interesting. And the 4-point Bézier gives you even more control. This was the one I want to recreate in Tableau. The Bézier curve has 4 points. A beginning, P1. An end, P4, and 2 control points, P2 and P3. These control points define the curvature of the line. The parameter t moves from 0 to 1 in a self-defined number of steps and kind of represents the percentage of the path traveled. Several websites try to scare you with formulas that look like this. But if you look further, easier to understand formulas can also be found. Still impressive formulas, which I haven't used in any kind of form since my graduation. These formulas are called vector equations. In other words, we can put x and y instead of p to get the corresponding coordinates. So if I want all the x coordinates, I just need to replace all the p's with an x, and similar for the y coordinates. And where in math you've got the x, in Tableau you've got the columns. And similar with y and the rows. So this translates to Tableau into this one. A Bézier curve is obviously not a straight line, so we need to draw more than 2 points. And if Elton John's Rocket Man jumps from 482 to 216 in the list, where do these data points need to be drawn? The answer lies in extra axis. Usually you visualize ranking on a single horizontal axis. But if you want to jump, you need an extra vertical helper axis. Every dot has its own x and y coordinates, or row and column values in Tableau. You have to decide by yourself how many points you want to plot between the previous and the current position. If you have too few, the visualization will look like an 8-bit low-resolution graphic, but too many data points definitely will slow down the performance of your workbook. I decided to use 50 data points for each jump. But the untangling of the Bézier curve meant I had to do some more data preparation. There are 2 different ways to add data points between the different values. One way is to change the dataset, also called data prep. The other one is Tableau native using table calculations. My dataset is pretty static, at least for a year, and table calculations need quite a bit more calculations and are harder to explain to others. So I decided to use data prep, changing my input data so it would be easier to use in Tableau without losing the flexibility of the Tableau calculations. The first step, adding all the data points. Every jump needs to have at least a starting point, an end point, and 48 data points in between. This t value needed to be calculated in data prep because you will add rows. This can be done by using a full auto join with a small table containing the numbers 1 to 50. But in Alteryx, this is really easily done by using the add rows component. Because the Bézier formula expects a value for t between 0 and 1, I converted the values with a simple divider formula. I did not create all the Bézier x and y coordinates in the data preparation, only the t values, because I wanted to calculate these values in Tableau. That way I could easily experiment with control points in Tableau, so instead of running the Alteryx flow over and over again. The next step to take is to calculate the previous position of each song. If both current and previous position are available in one row of the data, it's easy to calculate the curve between them. The benefit of using Alteryx or Tableau Prep is that you can combine the cleaning and preparation steps from raw Excel to one Tableau hyperfile. The final version of the input dataset looks like this. We can almost start to create the first calculation in Tableau, but I first need to define the exact control points of the Bézier curve. And I must emphasize, this looks definitely more difficult on this sheet than when you do it yourself. The line is drawn from the current position to the previous position, so kind of backwards in time. We start with point 1, sorry. The start of the line, it's the current position. Point 4 is the end of the line, the position of the song from the year before. Point 2 is directly above the starting point, and point 3 is halfway the current and the previous position. Now we can finally go to Tableau. I started to create the first calculations. If you break down the original Bézier formula into smaller parts, it isn't very hard to translate these into a Tableau calculated field. And a very similar formula can be found for the rows. These calculations are not final, since we need to keep into account the number of rules which are applicable to this visualization. Like, is the title going up in the list? Then an arc needs to be above the x-axis. Is going down, the arc goes beneath the x-axis. The new song then just show the position and there's no previous value. Are you a stayer? Make a small happy jump but land on the same position again. And is the song fallen out of the top 2000? Make a virtual point above 2000. I choose an arbitrary 2500. The final versions of the X jump chart looks like this. And you can break it down by the several versions. And the same for the Y formula. Okay, now we have got all the fields we need. Let's create the visualization. We start with the empty Tableau sheet. We get the two pills. The X jump chart on the columns, the Y jump chart on the rows. Interesting, but not really what we wanted and what you might have expected. These are all the current songs visualized 50 times each for every year. Let's filter the dataset to just one song. Jump from Van Halen seems a nice example for this jump plot. This looks better. We only need to connect the dots. So change the marks from automatic to line, isn't it? And no, that's not the one. What if you add the t value to the path? The visualization changes, but not for the better. The problem is still the level of calculation. How should Tableau know which dot needs to be connected? The answer is the top 2000 year. We've drawn 50 dots per year, so that field also needs to be added to the visualization. Cool. That looks something we had in mind. And what if I add each song on the rows? Yes, now we have a right base to work on. We can improve and refine the visualization. So we start formatting. First, we sort the songs on the current position. So it starts with Bohemian Rhapsody, like all years. We reverse the axis, so a point on the right side corresponds to the higher position, what you usually expect in the visualization. I add a vertical reference line to highlight the latest position. Because the rows are not very high, it looks like a diagonal line. The color red seems appropriate for the top 2000. To give a better understanding of the flow, I will change the coloring of the lines. I use a rather light tint for earlier years and darker ones for recent years. The individual positions also need some attention. We create a second axis consisting of the individual positions. I don't need to draw the full arc, but only the first dot. That's why I filter on T0 in the calculation. I repeat the same coloring trick as I did on the curves. But the current position isn't gray, but it will be a really standout color, orange gold. Joining the two axes shows the visualization I had in mind. Dots for individual positions per year and arcs for the movement. One problem, I think this visualization is much too crowded. You can hardly identify the movement of one song because of up to 20 dots and arcs are shown. Am I really interested in the full history? I might just look at the last 5 years. This way I can also optimize the color legend. Each year can be identified. And speaking of too much, a list of 2,000 songs is a lot. And it doesn't also perform that well within Tableau. So we create a pager which shows 50 songs per page. Now the visualization is almost finished. But if you want to see the exact movement of the particular song, it can be quite challenging since songs often don't move that much. Therefore, I added a small visualization of a single song, which is shown whenever you click on that specific song. And as you probably agree upon, this isn't following the best visualization practices. To help people to read the visualization, I added a small helper lightbox on top of it using the show hide button functionality. I took a screenshot of one song, used Photoshop to add a textual legend next to it, and the large vertical container on top of the dashboard, add the image with the right padding, and you're almost finished. Final steps, the header and the footer. Choose an appropriate visual and or logo so people immediately recognize what the visualization is about. And give credit where credit is due, your inspiration and yourself. So then we got the final visualization. These are the steps again. We started with scraping Wikipedia using just a browser and Excel. We cleansed the data, dug up some theory about Bezier curves, prepared the data to add extra t-points. We converted the Bezier formulas into Tableau. We visualized and finally we formatted the data. I know it's a lot of data. If you've got any questions, ask them now or please contact me afterwards. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Johan. I haven't seen any Q&A yet.
Oh, but I have a question for Johan.
Very good.
Johan, what would you do next year? So you have this version. What are the next ideas?
I've got a couple of months left to determine which one it will be. But I'm thinking about using animations within Tableau. These weren't available in December, but since 2020.1 they are. So I might use these. But if somebody got a nice idea, please let me know.
Okay.
Right,
probably
Sarah.
Sarah, do you have an idea for?
I'm afraid.
For Johan?
You put me on the spot. I've got lots of ideas. I'll message you separately, Johan.
Please.
Awesome. Very good. All right. Since we're kind of running a little bit over, let me just wrap this up. So thanks again for everyone who's presented. It's really great to see all these, both kind of the new features in Tableau, hearing about certification, and now kind of a example of how to get this pretty impressive visualization. If you have any stories like these or a very different story that you want to share with this user group, feel free to reach out to us, and the email address is here on the slide. It doesn't always have to be a big story. If you just have some quick tip that takes maybe 5 or 10 minutes to explain, that's fine too. We're just very happy to hear from all of you and want to give you this platform to share with the community, because that's really the best way for all of us to be learning. And then finally,